I have an update from Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who I got off the phone with this morning. Special Envoy Witkoff and Ambassador Huckabee had a very productive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu and other officials today in Israel on the topic of delivering much-needed food and aid to Gaza. President Trump is a humanitarian with a big heart, and that's why he sent Special Envoy Witkoff to the region in an effort to save lives and end this crisis.
Captain Levitt yesterday on the need to see for themselves. And I think it's important because the world is willing to say, and just say, according to the Hamas Disinformation Bureau, they tell about 60,000 have lost their lives. I have no way to verify that, but they have no track record of being accurate. They've already revised it down a number of times. Number two, it seems no aid gets in because of the IDF. That we know that's not true. It's certainly not the mandate in the charter. So people are suffering, no doubt about it. But just remember who's to blame. It's Hamas who's to blame. Israel would have been perfectly fine with the Palestinian presence in the West Bank and Gaza. But it's been nothing but hellacious for the general population, culminating in October 7th and the unprovoked attack. Ambassador Mike Huckabee, fresh off a visit to Gaza with Steve Witkoff, has been kind enough to join us now from Israel. Ambassador, welcome.
Thank you, Brian. It's great to be with you, and I'm so glad you're giving a forum to get the truth out about what's happening in Gaza and who's responsible, because most of the media is filled with some of the worst misinformation and, frankly, just outright lies. And it's very, very harmful, and it's only empowering Hamas and causing our hostages to be kept there longer.
Well, tell me what you saw. I mean, you just said, let me see for myself. You got your security. You went in there with Steve Witkoff. Where did you go? What did you see?
We went into the Rafah area down in the southern part. We were able to look into other parts, but here's what we saw. The GHF food program is working. It's working very well. In fact, today we passed over 100 million meals having been served in 2 months. We kept the president's direction to us when that was set up, and it was simple. Get food to the people, but don't deliver it in such a way that Hamas can steal it. Brian, Hamas has been stealing about 80% of the food. Some say even more than that. And when they steal it and they loot the trucks, then they turn around and they sell it. I'll give you an example. A simple 4-bag kilo of sugar is selling for over $200 in Gaza on the black market because Hamas has stolen most of the food and then they put it out on the black market. Well, people can't afford that. It's a simple thing. Most of the people coming up to the GHF feeding sites will say, wow, this is great. This is the first time I haven't had to pay for the food that's supposed to be humanitarian. It's been disgraceful, and I'm so tired of people saying that the IDF are just shooting people. That is simply not true. There are moments, there have been very difficult environments where maybe you have several thousand people rushing toward an outpost of IDF soldiers. They're first warned verbally, then they're fired a warning shot, and sometimes they keep coming. Sometimes there have been fatalities, but it is never just this random shooting. That's simply not happening. In fact, the IDF has worked very hard. They've offered to provide security to get UN trucks. One of the biggest problems in not getting people fed is the UN. It's been horrible. And they're more interested in pretending to be a humanitarian organization than they are in actually getting food to people who are hungry.
Ambassador, I'm sure you saw the reports over the weekend that Israel cannot prove that Hamas is reselling the provisions. Your thoughts on that? I'm sure you heard that.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've also watched just endless loops of videotape in which that's exactly what they're doing. You know, it's ludicrous for someone to say that. Let's just remember where the source of a lot of this misinformation comes from. The so-called Gaza Health Ministry is actually Hamas. They tell a story, usually false. They hand it off to maybe Al Jazeera. Mm-hmm. That's a Hamas-related entity. The next thing you know, they've told some NGO at the UN this false information, who then gives it to the UN, and the UN reports it, no one having checked it out, no one having verified the veracity of the information. Then all the news outlets say, oh, the UN today confirms that Brian Kilmeade is not the smartest man in the room. Well, we all knew that anyway. But Now we have the UN as the source of it, and people are quoting the UN, but they're really quoting Hamas. That's where it all started.
So you
what
do
we
have
saw-
proof. You're saying that Israel does have proof that Hamas is reselling the aid that you guys are putting in
They
there.
absolutely do. And in fact, we watched in real time. There are drone cameras all over Gaza. There were steel cameras around that you could watch on the monitors in real time and see trucks getting looted. You could see gunmen getting up on top of the trucks that the UN was bringing in. Look, it's a mess down there. I'm not going to tell you it's a beautiful sight. It isn't. It's a war zone. But it is a war zone, and it is a mess for one reason, because of Hamas. And when President Trump made his statement yesterday and asked Steve Witkoff and me to go to Gaza and see firsthand and deliver for him a report, I can tell you the president gets it right when all of Europe is getting it wrong.
But
President Trump said it's Hamas. And I want to make one quick point here. It's interesting to me that all the European nations are coming together. They're really helping Hamas by demanding a Palestinian state and condemning Israel. Hamas loves that. But do you know who's taken the other side against Hamas? All of the Arab Gulf states, like the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Qataris. That ought to tell you something.
But I know, but they did include in that
understand what's
statement,
going on.
Ambassador, they did include in their statement they wanted moving towards a two-state solution, which we know is farcical. I don't mean to brag, but we did have Secretary of State Marco Rubio on yesterday with this very question about the recognition of a two-state solution, which, by the way, I don't even know what it would look like on paper, let alone in real life. Cut 29. Yeah. We have allies, UK, Canada, and France, all either threatening to or already done recognizing a Palestinian state. That's over 140 in the UN. How does the U.S. view this move?
Irrelevant. It's irrelevant. I mean, it's annoying to some, but it's irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything. First of all, none of these countries have the ability to create a Palestinian state. There can be no Palestinian state unless Israel agrees to it. Number two, they can't even tell you where this Palestinian state is. They can't tell you who will govern it. And I think number three, it's counterproductive.
And that's your point. It's counterproductive. Is it true today? The Times of Israel is saying Israel is warning Hamas it will begin to annex parts of Gaza if they don't get a hostage deal reached. And we did see some hostage video of this young man, 21 years old. Obviously, looks like he's suffering. It looks like something from Auschwitz, horrendous. But your reaction to that report and Marco Rubio's statement?
So proud of the secretary. He's been spot on. When he talked about the fact this is sort of a just pipe dream when these European countries are out there demanding a Palestinian state, I've suggested, look, if France wants to create a Palestinian state, let them do it. Let them put it right there in the French Riviera. It's a nice piece of land. I'm sure people would like to come and go from Gaza and maybe from even Judea and Samaria and go to the French Riviera. So Macron is welcome to offer that if he likes. But you and I were talking back in January before I was sworn in to become ambassador here. And you asked me about a Palestinian state. I said, Brian, we've already had one. There is a Palestinian state. It's called Gaza. That was a absolutely 100% Palestinian state. How did that work out? That's what it will look like.
What about, so right now, there is no talks. Talks broke down about a week ago. So Steve Witkoff comes back. You guys tour Gaza. Now, the President of the United States says, it's hard to fake starving. We know some of there were some hoaxes. Sadly, there's some kid born with birth defects. It looks horrible, and they made it seem like that kid was starving. I get it. But you do see human suffering. You care about human beings. You're a pastor, for goodness sakes. You care about human beings first. So if Hamas won't come to the table, have you seen a workable plan? And if is there anything that could be done? For example, the Qataris, pressuring them even more severely, kicking out some of their, the ones that are not in the war zone, out of their country to get them to the table. Can you tell our audience the next step?
Well, the president, I think, had the best next step. He was very clear in saying there needs to be a concerted effort. Here's what ought to happen. The UN ought to join forces with GHF and start getting the food to the people and quit pretending that GHF is ineffective and quit pretending that they're doing a great job. They could work together. It would be helpful. The UN has lots of food. They just don't know how to get it in safely. And they don't like the method of delivery. And they seem to be more focused on how the food gets there than whether or not it even arrives. Well, that's not a hunger-centric issue. They need to take care of the people. Brian, there is suffering there, no doubt about it. But this idea that there is mass starvation on the level that you see on pictures is simply not accurate. One of the things I want to tell you, we talked to Gazans today. You know what they really want? They want the United States to stand with them, to help them have a future. They're sick of Hamas.
So have you been able to interact with any form of leadership with any Palestinian leadership? I don't care if it's whether it's a group leader or anybody in the Palestinian Authority you might deem somewhat respectable.
I've been to Ramallah twice. I've sat down with not just a group of business leaders, but also with government leaders. I think that there is, look, there's deep philosophical disagreements about a two-state and certain things, but there is also a real desire to see peace and prosperity for the future. But when I sat down with Gazans today, many of these are well-educated people. You know what they want? They just want Hamas out of their lives. They want peace again. They want to build communities where their kids can grow up in safety. They're sick of Hamas. They're sick of the PLO. They're tired of having their lives destroyed by people who treat them as if they don't exist and they're not important. But they love the United States. And this is what was fascinating to Steve Witkoff and me. They're grateful to President Trump for the things he's saying, for the things he's promising to do. And it was kind of a surprise to us to hear that these are not people that are saying, well, you know, we've been for Hamas, but we're not going to be so much anymore. They hate Hamas. They're ready for Hamas to disappear and never be seen again.
So, for example, if the mob took over my neighborhood, which happened in New York City for decades, really tough to speak up against the mob because your family's going to get wiped out. So Hamas is the mob. They're a terrorist mob, perhaps more ruthless, definitely more ruthless than you would find in the mob at its zenith here in New York City and different enclaves. Got it. So how many of them are left? And what is it going to take to get to the next step? Have you seen a plan even on paper that would wipe them out, marginalize them, isolate them?
I think you're going to see that very soon, but it's the president's prerogative to release the details, and I expect that you're going to see that. When I say soon, I'm talking not months or weeks, but just in a very few days, where he will outline what he is going to instruct the United States to be a part of. And I think it's going to be celebrated in Gaza by the people who have suffered for 22 months under this absolutely vicious band of savages.
I know. For you personally, there's a story out there that everyone seems to run with. That Prime Minister Netanyahu is subjected to his extreme right. It's not really his policies, but if he doesn't do what the extreme right want him to do in Israel, then he's going to lose his power and he'll lose his base. Could you tell me what the reality is? I can't do inside politics in Israel.
Well, I live with it every day over here, and I can tell you that that's simply not the case. Does he have a right wing in his party and in his government? Of course he does. He also has a left wing. It's kind of like President Trump has to deal with all of the various people who are in the process. But here's the part, Brian, that is just not getting through, and people are not being honest. President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are closer than I think probably any two world leaders have been. And any attempt to say that they're not on the same page is not true. And President Trump has talked with almost daily the prime minister, and the prime minister is willing to make bold moves to get this all settled. Nobody wants it to be over more than he does, as well as every Israeli wants it to be over. So this notion that Israel wants to continue the war, that's one of the dumbest things I think I've ever heard in my life.
And I keep hearing it. I want you to hear what Richard Haass said from the Council of Foreign Relations. I want to see what your take is. Listen.
the president has political standing in Israel that even Bibi Netanyahu doesn't have. If the president wants to move the needle in Gaza, he can do it. He can put pressure on Israel, not by declaring support for a Palestinian state unconditionally, but by pushing the Israelis to come up with a day after plan, to stop, to open up the Gaza to food aid, to stop new settlements in the West Bank. There's a lot of things this president can do if he really.
So your thoughts? I just wanted to get you that take. We're up against a break, but what do you think?
Okay, I'll be real quick and just tell you, Richard Haas is absolutely off base. It is not the Israelis that need the pressure. It's Hamas. And he needs to come over, as Steve Witkoff and I did today. He needs to look and realize the problem, the total obstruction here is Hamas. Israel is doing its part. They're doing more than their part. Can you tell me in the history of the world, any country that was told that they were responsible for feeding the people that murdered them?
Ambassador, the president's made a lot of great picks to put in a lot of good, important places, but I think you might be one of his finest. Ambassador Mike Huckabee, thanks so much.
Always a pleasure, Brian. Thank you.
Recently, I made the decision that for now, I don't want to go back in the system. I think it's broken. I think there's so much, there are so many good people who are public servants, who do such good work, teachers and firefighters and police officers and nurses and scientists. So it's not about them, but I believe, and I always believed, that as fragile as our democracy is, our systems would be strong enough to defend our most fundamental principles. And I think right now that they're not as strong as they need to be. And
I feel like every time she speaks, I feel like asking myself, what was the question? Because she never answers the question.
No.
She has no idea where she's going when she begins to talk. Once in a while, that happens to all of us. You go, okay, well, how do I buy some time till I really...
Yeah.
But here's the thing. She finally comes out and she gives a... Are you playing that back for yourself?
I'm just playing the cackle. I was going to cue up the cackle because it's amazing.
So she was explaining her rationale for not running. You know her rationale for not running. She's going to run for president.
Yeah. Well, she knows that she's going to lose. I mean, I think that's the thing.
No, I don't think. She probably thinks she's going to win.
I don't know. I mean, I think that her advisors at one point just said, you know what, you need to take a break. Everyone wants to press pause on Kamala Harris, including Californians. You know it's bad when she drops out of a race in California. She wants to remain relevant. So I don't know if she's planning on ever running for president again, but she's basically saying in this interview that she's going to go around the country and talk to people about how they shouldn't lose their power. You know, she's lost her power. So what record does she have to go on?
So she says, I've been a public servant for so long, now I want to listen. Take your time, no rush. Here is what Democrats are saying about her coming back, and then Joe Biden had a big speech yesterday too. Cut 8.
A lot of Democrats want to turn the page on all of that and look forward. And so it's not going to be easy for her.
There's going to be a book tour. And one of the things that I talked to people who have been dealing with it with her is that she really struggled with what she was going to say about Joe Biden.
Democrats historically have not been interested in nominating again someone who ran, got the nomination, and failed.
I don't know if she should run again, but I definitely would like to see her write a book. I definitely would like to, see her start a podcast and just build a real connection with people.
So there's Julie Banderas is here. Julie, that was Charlemagne, Susan Page, another columnist named Isaac DeVore, and David Axelrod. So there's no appetite for her. I think she's like 6th if they did polling now. They have Newsom at first at 20, and there's Bashir and Westmore. Anybody associated with Joe Biden, let alone a vice president, how could they run?
Well, and not only that, but who is going to believe anything Kamala Harris said? Because Colbert actually brought up a point which would have actually given her an opportunity to sort of fess up to the Joe Biden cognitive cover-up. And he asked her about the debate.
You think Jay Tapper was a stretch? We would never accept it from her. Of course not.
But still, the fact that she had an opportunity on national television to actually address the fact that there was a bit of a cover-up. And she could have actually gained herself some credibility when she was asked about that debate. And then he says, spoiler alert, it didn't go well. And that's when they decided that they needed to put you in the running for presidency. She should have said something. She should have addressed it, I think. I mean, it would have been an opportunity for her to actually
she's talentless.
be transparent.
She's talentless. And
and she's also not, and she's also dishonest.
Right.
So she lives up to that name.
Yeah. So President Trump had an interesting take on her. She can't speak. She can't talk. She doesn't do interviews.
Yes.
So There, for example, this guy, Zoran Mandani, I think he's dangerous.
Oh, he's awful.
But he can communicate. He is composed, understands social media. He can get himself around a question. Gavin Newsom is an actor. I put Gavin Newsom like a 4.
Oh, he's so annoying.
I put Kamala Harris talentless at 2, unless she has a real personality that she is just so afraid to show, which she has to deal with her therapist on that. But I put Mamdani like Bill Clinton.
I mean,
slippery.
Yeah. I mean, most politicians should be able to talk. I mean, that's kind of what their jobs are, is to basically fill our heads with a bunch of BS. I mean, most of them are doing that. Mamdani, he's well-spoken. I still think he's a huge threat to New York City. And I unfortunately think that because somebody comes across as well-spoken doesn't necessarily make them the right choice, nor does it make them intelligent, nor does it make them rational. He's a communist, and he wants to turn New York City into communism. But that's neither here nor there. I think that Kamala Harris, quite frankly, watching her on that just reminds us of why we're so lucky and that we dodged that bullet, that she's not the president.
Well, not everybody feels like, who's the guy from Dumber and Dumber?
Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah. Jeff Daniels. Didn't he say that she would have been heroic? She'd been like a founding father as a woman. Here's Joe Biden yesterday. He gave a speech where he screamed his way through it. Cut 4.
Look, folks. We can't sugarcoat this. These are dark days. But you're all here for the same reason. I left that prestigious law firm in the public defender's office to go to the defender's office years ago. It's because our future is literally on the line. We must be unapologetic of fighting for the future. To paraphrase Frederick Douglass, there is no progress without struggle. And I would add, there is no progress without courage. None.
So does he understand that a lot of people are thrilled to death he's not there? They love the fact that his legacy is being dismantled?
Did you watch the video when he got lost on stage? Did you?
Yeah.
I mean, he got on stage and he got lost.
He was late.
Yeah, and then he got to the podium and he had no idea where he was going, and then he went back, and then he was confused. He sat down. I mean, he was in a room full of lawyers. I'm sure they were all probably thanking, their lucky stars that he wasn't elected. But and he did a good job, at least, at reading that script, because that was not off the top of his head. That was clearly pre-written for him.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, the other story that's taking place while this is happening is the investigation into the auto pen. Mm-hmm. And Tom Donilon, his chief confidant, who was telling him in the polls he's looking strong, when Nancy Pelosi turned around and says, put Tom on. What polls are you showing him? Like he's a child.
Yeah.
He said, well, I'm doing fine at the polls. Talk to Tom. Because put him on. He goes, what polls are you looking at? So this guy was he already said if Biden had won, he would have made $8 million. He already had made $4 million. Mm-hmm. So why would you not cash in that gravy train, let alone, patriotic thing to do would be to say he can't do it anymore. So while that happens, he's speaking, reinforcing why there's an investigation, and Kamala Harris is not running but queuing up for 28. So we'll see what goes on.
The softball questions last night, though, it was actually painful. I mean, not only did she completely gloss over the fact that he bombed in the debate, and that was the day that everybody in America realized we've been lied to for years. And I mean, Colbert, obviously his show's been canceled, so he's canceled for a reason. He didn't ask one question. I mean, all of the questions were softball questions.
Right. So let's talk about something else that's going on, and that is Stephen Colbert and the end of his show. And it's got to be the hardest one to get rid of would be the Tonight Show because of the legacy. There's actually, I think it's at Universal, you walk through the Tonight Show history. It's a history of television.
It is.
So it's hard to get rid of that institution. I hope they don't. But they're terrible. Stephen Colbert is awful. He's trying to blow up his show and go out like a martyr. There's no way he's lasting 10 months. Then you got Jimmy Kimmel getting a 1-4, which is, for us, you get a 1-4 and you get canceled. But he has a network which permeates 100% of the country. And then Gutfeld's getting a 3-4, 3-8. So whether it was a 10 or 11, he was killing them all. Jon Stewart weighed in on Gutfeld's success. Listen.
They all talk about Gutfeld's the most popular. Yet he's not popular because he's a both sides guy. He's not, a fair use like, the fairness doctrine says. Like, he's relentless. And, after a day of watching Fox News and being bathed in their very purposeful propaganda, it's a great way to top off the night. But it's not the Jay Leno, like, I don't understand. I mean, why you want to offend your audience? Why not just do a show about, why do you have to talk about things you believe? Why do you have to make jokes about things you actually think? I just say, I'm just going to go throw myself down a hill.
So that's Jon Stewart weighing in. What do you think?
Yeah, I think nobody wants to admit the fact that the country is getting sick and tired of this hardcore left woke messaging that's coming from Hollywood and all the late night talk shows. They're sick of it, and where did it get them? All these celebrities that backed Kamala Harris realized that they were backing a loser, and they're looking at their party, and not even one leader could she name in that interview. Who's the leader of the Democratic Party right now? Come up with someone. Oh no, I can't. I don't want to name names because God forbid, I leave somebody out. That's what she said in the interview. I mean, everybody knows that the leader of the Democratic Party doesn't exist. I think they're probably still thinking Obama is the leader of the Democratic Party. That's how out of touch they are.
All right. The other big story is Sydney Sweeney.
I love this story.
So tell me about, should we be insulted that she's advertising Eagle jeans and the word jeans is she says, I have great jeans?
First of all, this story is the most ridiculous excuse for the left to get angry. They're angry because a blonde with blue eyes was modeling jeans, which PS was happening in the 80s under Jordache jeans. When Calvin Klein came out and had Mark Wahlberg wearing tighty whities or Justin Bieber wearing tighty whities and in their tight bodies, they were not getting an outcry from the left. Oh my God, we're sexualizing men now, right? She's a model. And what do models do? They wear clothes. And are models supposed to be attractive? Yeah, historically they are. And by the way, American Eagle, and I just got to say this because there's been so many misnomers about this, which is so ridiculous. Nobody's talking about this. Number one, they have a size 24 jean. There are not many companies that make size 24 jeans, and they advertise for size 24 jeans.
Big?
It's not petite. I will tell you that.
Here is Robin Landa. She's insulted by this. Cut 48.
The pun, good genes, activates troubling historical associations for this country. The American eugenics movement in its prime between 1900 and 1940 weaponized the idea of good genes just to justify white supremacy.
So that's what launched everything, as well as a whole bunch of people on TikTok saying how insulted they were because they're bigger women, or in terms what Lawrence Jones calls thicker women.
What's wrong with being attractive and thin? And by the way, it doesn't mean to say that if you're thicker, that you are not attractive. This is just a certain body type, but they advertise all different body types. And not only that, but what really bothers me and what most are not talking about is that a large proceeds of these jeans, she's selling them for $89 a piece, are going to victims of domestic violence. They're going to set up a hotline for people who are victims or survivors of domestic violence to call in, and that's where the proceeds are going to. Why is anybody talking about that? So she's actually standing up for women, and if it means selling her beauty in order to do so, to raise awareness for domestic violence, why not?
But wasn't the big push ever since George Floyd for some reason to get everybody has to be a minority that does a commercial, and everyone's got to have some type of defect.
Well, and I love all of the memes and all the jokes about this on X. I mean, now you've got people wearing denim jeans. They've got Beyonce, and it's just ridiculous. Everybody's making fun of it because it's clearly a joke. And the Dunkin' Donuts ad that just came out, there's a guy that's talking about how he's got good genetics, and people are all angry about that. Dunkin' Donuts. Do you remember the Super Bowl commercial with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, his sidekick, and they're the Dung Kings? I mean, these commercials are comedic. They're funny. They're tongue in cheek. This was a play on words on jeans. Who gives a crap?
Here's some examples from social media. Cut 47.
Hey, American Eagle. Now do black and brown women. Because black and brown women also have great genes that they inherit from their parents. Did you know that?
Talking about blue jeans and white people. Boycott American Eagle. Boycott the out of them.
A blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. That is Nazi propaganda.
There is this American Eagle statement, which I'm assuming is a joke that somebody put out, which is hilarious.
Well, what is it? Is it real or a joke?
I mean, do our producers know if this is real? We sincerely apologize for featuring Sydney Sweeney. It's probably a joke, but it goes on to say, we underestimated the combined impact of her blue eyes, blonde hair, and general hotness. Then it says, also, we did not realize how big her boobs would be. Our marketing team has been sent to denim sensitivity training. Thank you for your feedback. Please stop emailing
No, that's
us.
real. I don't think.
No,
there's
it's
any doubt.
not.
It is real.
Okay, it's the best thing I've read ever. Like, please stop emailing us. We're sorry her boobs were so big. I mean, is that really real? Because I read it and I was like, okay, if this is real, that marketing person needs a massive promotion.
Well, a lot of times you book
It's hilarious.
A lot of times you book a model and you don't realize how big her chest is.
Right.
It happens to everybody.
I can imagine.
Right.
God,
and then
so
you sit there and go,
offensive.
what do I do?
You're like,
Do I blow
shoot.
up the whole shoot, or do I take pictures anyway?
Right. Like, do we have to show this woman's boobs? I mean,
Right.
that's probably not going to sell.
You know what's the worst? When they show up and they have a shape. And that leads to other pictures from other angles.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what people want to see. I'm not saying like you.
Right.
But I mean, I'm just saying. And first of all, like the other thing that's crazy about this commercial, she's not even wearing like skin tight jeans. I mean, yeah, you can see part of her cleavage, but she's actually walking around in baggy jeans. They're like modest jeans. Some of the past jean commercials, they look like they're painted on.
Well, and that, by the way, that's uncomfortable. We're not into that as a country anymore. We were at a point where the jeans
Painted
had to
on
be
jeans?
extremely tight.
Well, you know, skinny jeans are no longer a thing. It took me like a year to adapt to that.
Let me ask you something. Skinny where? Skinny calves?
Like skinny
thighs?
ankles and skinny
that
thighs
goes
and
right down.
calves. Like the whole thing basically is just like tight to your ankle.
Can you help me with
now
this?
It's wide leg and it's baggy.
Okay.
It took me a good year. I was still wearing skinny jeans and my friends are like, Julie, those were out like 3 years ago.
And they will tell you personally, or will they text
Oh, they tell
message
me
you?
right to my face.
They will.
Yeah, including my kids. They're like the fashion police.
Isn't
in
it
my
the
house.
worst when you're out and they're like,
Yeah.
what are you wearing? And
Yeah.
you're like, I'm 1,000 miles from home.
I'm
Now you
also
tell me.
way older than you and I'm not going to adapt to fashion trends as quickly.
Yeah, even though they're probably right.
Yeah, they are 100% right.
What are mom jeans?
Mom jeans are the ones that come up over your belly button.
Okay. So it's the waist of the
Which,
mom
by
jeans.
the way, mom jeans are back. The
Don't
jeans
say that.
I hate to say it, but that's what the style is now. People are wearing these loose, baggy, wide leg jeans that come up above your stomach, which, by the way, is not a pretty look.
I don't think so.
To elongate your torso from above your belly button to your crotch, can I say that?
Yes.
Is not attractive. It
the
makes
only
your
way-
ass look like it's freaking 5 feet long.
Right. The only way to fight it, untucked shirts. They cover up.
Okay.
Cover up the pelvis.
Yeah, I
Right.
suppose. Then what's the point of having a high jean if you're untucking a shirt?
There
I think
is
the
no
whole point
point.
is that they want the jeans up practically to their boobs.
There is no point.
Okay. It's like a jumper.
There was no point to anything we just spoke about.
No, there
Not
never
yet.
is, Brian.
When do we see you on TV?
I'm going to be on Fox Noticias today. I mean, that's what I'm doing
Oh,
today.
okay. I thought you might be doing
Fox
that.
Deportes.
She
It's on.
She speaks multiple languages.
I do. I speak a couple languages, yeah.
Don't brag.
I
It's not
mean,
even-
yeah. I mean, it's not that I understand what's coming out of my mouth. I said I read a teleprompter.
I can read a teleprompter.
I can read
Thanks
a
so
prompter.
much.
Love ya.
Julie Banderas, go get him.
The president has waited over 6 months now and given the best efforts possible. We continue to engage with the Russian side as early this week on Monday or Tuesday. We had a full conversation with them as well, not with Putin, but with some of Putin's top people in hopes of arriving at some understanding on a path forward that would lead to peace. And we've not seen any progress on that. And I think what bothers the president the most is he has these great phone calls where everyone sort of claims, yeah, we'd like to see this end if we could find a way forward. And then he turns on the news and another city's been bombed, including those far from the front lines. So at some point, he's got to make a decision here about, how much to continue to engage in an effort to do ceasefires if one of the two sides is not interested in one.
And that is Marco Rubio, of course, on with us yesterday as Secretary of State, talking about where we go now from Russia. Inside 10 days is going to be Russia's deadline to get to the peace table and have a ceasefire. I don't think they're close to doing it. It's going to be an interesting standoff because President Trump doubled and tripled down yesterday. And he said, this guy's really disappointed me. I don't think I'm going to talk to him again. I'm not sure sanctions will work, but they're coming. Trace Gallagher is getting set to host Fox News at night in a few hours. And in about 2 hours, filling in for John Roberts.
Right.
Trace, welcome back.
Brian, great to be back with you again.
So many deadlines.
Yeah.
I mean, China, August 12th, 10 days instead of 50 for Trump and Russia. Where do you think this is going?
Nowhere. I mean, I don't think Putin has any interest. I mean, you see the former president Medvedev issuing these inflammatory comments. So it's not just Putin not doing anything. It's they're trying to stir this thing up. And so you have Medvedev who's saying, hey, wait a minute, these threats by Trump that he's gonna institute these sanctions against our allies, and they're gonna crank up. You want to buy fuel from Russia, we're gonna crank up the tariffs. You want to buy this from Russia, we're gonna crank up the tariffs. And he's saying that's not just a threat for the economy of Russia, that's a war threat. So what Medvedev is saying is that Trump is on the precipice of creating a war with Russia, not just solving the war with Ukraine and Russia, but creating its own war. That's inflammatory.
Here's what Rubio said about Medvedev, because I read that back to him, cut 40.
Well, you can't ignore anything someone's saying, and you always wonder, is that approved as, but he basically is not a relevant player in Russian politics. He's not a decision maker. He's not in any of the meetings or conversations we've ever had. If you recall, he was the president there for about 4 years during the time when Putin didn't run again, and then obviously he came back, so he was a placeholder. So I wouldn't call him a relevant, decision maker. But by the same token, obviously he's someone who once held office there and is still in a role and in government, and his words are going to have impact in terms of being a provocateur and things of that nature. But so I think I'm not sure he's speaking for the official Russian position, but he's certainly someone in an official position in Russia who's saying things that are inflammatory.
And I think Rubio's right. He's probably not relevant there, and maybe he's not speaking in an official capacity, but he keeps speaking, and he keeps saying these incendiary things, and nobody's telling him to shut up. So that's the whole point here, is that if they wanted him to close his mouth, Putin would say, close your mouth. Instead, he keeps saying this stuff, so somebody somewhere is giving him the green light.
Right, so we'll see where this goes, because I guess secondary sanctions would be the next thing, but here you are, Trace, in sensitive negotiations with China. Yeah. Are you going to say, oh, by the way, we're in a backstretch here, but I'm giving you 100% sanctions on all the oil you're buying from Russia? Right. The answer would be yes, but I'm not sure the president wants to do that.
I don't think so either. I mean, I don't think he really does want to do that, but, it becomes kind of this thing where he's in a quandary. So he has been saying for months that Putin, or years, that Putin is, he has a good relationship with Putin. They talk well. They have these great conversations, and then Putin, it looks like Putin's just kind of playing him. And Trump knows that. So he's like, well, screw this guy. This is not going to happen. So at some point, whether it involves China, whether it hurts the negotiations with China, at some point, he has to say enough is enough, and he has to put these things in place.
Well, I mean, when President Trump first took over, he says, I'm going to be friends with Putin. Why do I have to be enemies with everybody? And it's good to be friends. And they had that play. They said it plays into the Russian hoax theme. Why are you so nice to him? I guess he has something over you. At the same time, Hillary Clinton is brewing this hoax situation where it's going to not only show Russia's infiltrating our elections, but it's in collusion with Donald Trump. Yeah. That all plays into it. It's almost the same way they're doing with the Epstein thing. The president's not running from the story because he's not guilty. Right. But he wants it to end just like he wanted the Russia thing to end. Where do you think the hoax story is going?
Well, I mean, I think it's going in the same place that the last one was going, where it's going against the Democrats. And I think now a lot of this is coming out where even some Democrats who were skeptical are like, oh, no. We've known for years and years and years that Russia has been trying to influence American elections. That's not the issue. You're missing the entire issue. The issue is that the Hillary Clinton campaign, along with the FBI, these documents show, used this dossier to actually smear Donald Trump as a Russian asset. That's the point of this. It has nothing to do with Russia influencing or not influencing our elections. It has everything to do with Hillary Clinton and her campaign and this dossier. And today, you read in the New York Times and you read in the Washington Post, the first time they've really kind of brought this up, that they're knocking this down by saying, we've known forever about Russia trying to influence American elections. That's not the subject. The subject is that they changed the intel, and before they came out with a final intel conclusion, they leaked their conclusion to the media. As soon as Obama said change it, they not only started changing it, but right away they leaked it to the media, because the next day after this meeting in the White House, you have these stories in the New York Times and the Washington Post. They went on to win a Pulitzer Prize for it, for Russian collusion. So somebody leaked this stuff before they came up with a final conclusion. And moreover, that you have these new documents that show the FBI used the Steele dossier and didn't attribute it, didn't say this is a Democratic, this is a hit piece from the Hillary Clinton campaign. Paid for by Clinton. They didn't declare that, and that's where this whole thing gets very sketchy.
And John Brennan told Trey Gowdy directly, I didn't use it. We didn't use it for the intelligence operation. So that is a lie, or to get the clearance from the FISA court. So this is the headline. Get your head around this. Clinton's emails were likely Russian disinformation. So the whole communication between George Soros's Open Society Foundation and Clinton's people and her staffer who came up with the idea, that's Russian disinformation.
Right.
So they're trying to wrap this around. So do you, as Kash Patel, you're being challenged now. So Kash Patel, who's always had theories and hyperbole and thought of conspiracy. Now, does he have to go out and go find the forensics to show it's actually Hillary's emails?
Right. And that's the whole point, is when you read the Washington Post and you read the New York Times and they keep saying, oh, no, and they keep knocking it down. And then you read the comments and all the people are commenting saying, what about Epstein? What about Epstein? Oh, here we go. We're trying to just kind of it's deceptive. They're trying to get away from Epstein, and they won't deal with the actual issue because the New York Times won't let them deal with the issue, because they keep saying that, like they did about the laptop. Oh, it looks like Russian misinformation, disinformation, and so on and so forth. And they're missing the entire point of it.
So, Trace, the other thing to keep in mind, too, is that the Epstein thing eventually will be just as empty as the Russia hoax.
Yeah.
Because you can run that into the ground. President Trump hasn't been around that guy 15 years, 10 years, 12 years before he died. So you're going to run that down thinking you got him. Do you know what's going to happen? You're going to have the midterm elections. You think the Republicans are vulnerable because of the big, beautiful law.
Yeah.
And you're not going to talk about it. Oh, I watched 30 minutes. I wanted to torture myself of primetime, 30 minutes of every primetime show until they were done with it on CNN. And the first 30 minutes were all Epstein.
Yeah.
All Epstein.
Right. Because they think they're onto something.
They think they're onto something, but it's a story that's dead that you had no interest in. You just had a president that was trying to put the former guy in jail, and you don't think this would have come up? I'll wheel out Stormy Daniels, but not Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
Here's what Jonathan Turley said, cut 24.
When you see the reaction of the media today, it's clear that no matter what is produced, you can show a dozen heads in a duffel bag and they're still not impressed. And the reason is that for most of the media, this is not coverage. It would be a confession. That is, if they actually cover this story, they are confessing their own role in what may be the greatest political hit job in history.
He doesn't really speak like that, as you know.
No, I mean, he's always very measured. Even. And the whole problem here is that the media knows they're complicit. And if they jump on board with this, if they covered this honestly, they would have to come out and say, okay, well, now we have some explaining to do. And they're not about to do that. You talk about the Epstein thing. CNN's editorial committee sounds like the Democratic Party's editorial committee, which is they look at social media, they look at the top 1,000 people on social media, and they make their editorial decisions like that. They hear a lot of comments about Epstein. Oh, Epstein's got to be hot. But if you look at the total picture, it's not hot. It's not hot. It's the same thing. You have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris coming out last night. They come out publicly, and the Democratic Party is like, Joe Biden, oh, it's a threat to democracy. Oh, the Supreme Court is coming. Oh, the district courts are great, but the Supreme Court is terrible. And we're in very dark days now. And you think, oh, my God, the Democratic Party really thinks that their only asset is to hate Trump. We will stipulate in court that you hate Trump. How about you come up with something that's going to help people? I know you hate. How about you you help somebody? How about you bring Kamala out and Joe Biden out and explain how you are going to help people going forward? Which, by the way, Biden looked terrible last night, but that's a
yeah. I mean,
different
isn't he dealing with cancer situation now? I mean, does anyone even talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's bad. I really do. I think it's one of those things where he looked confused. He looked like you would think he would look at least rested and ready, and he would be prepared for this speech. And I think he looked haggard. He just looked like he was still the president. They were working him all. It's just he looks terrible.
I'm telling you, my family would not let me go out. If I was dealing with cancer, confused all the time. Did you see when they introduced him? He was nowhere to be found for about 2 minutes.
Right. And that's the whole thing is they're like, this is a guy who just looks lost. I don't know what his exact health problems are, but when you have his former aides going in, except the ones who pled the fifth, you have his aides going in before Congress, and now you can see that the narrative is not like, no, we're not going to say anything. The narrative now is, oh yeah, I mean, we all knew Joe Biden was getting older, but boy, beyond that, he was perfect. So it's admit to the obvious and deny anything that goes deeper. That's the status.
Here's a little of what Chris is talking about. Cut 2.
I'm proud I've appointed judges doing their best to be independent, fair, and impartial, respecting the rule of law and upholding the Constitution. I wish I could say the same for the executive branch, which seems doing its best to dismantle the Constitution. Oh, I'm being deadly earnest, man. Which seems to be what's going on.
He said he's trying to dismantle everything we did. Yes, exactly.
Oh, but remember, the district judges are doing exactly what they should be doing. They are great. I mean, give a big applause for the district judges around the country shutting down the president's agenda. The Supreme Court coming out and knocking those districts. Oh, come on. You kidding me? That's crazy talk. You can't do that. Look at the decisions they've made. He's like, have you seen the decisions? And then it comes out and he gives the Trump the dark days. And then you think you have not learned anything. You are the former president. You're not running for everything. You got nothing to lose. Get off the talking points and tell us how you feel. Tell us exactly what the Democratic Party needs to do to get better, because they're not getting better.
West Coast perspective now. Kamala Harris, how she viewed in local papers. Did she not run because she knew she wouldn't win?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the bottom line is even the California machine is like, she's just not really a very good candidate. I mean, you look at the Emerson poll, the new Emerson poll, which had her right after the election at 37%. She was the number one candidate. If they were going to hold a new election or a new campaign, it was Kamala. We got to slide her back in there. This time she'll win. Now, 6 months later, she's running at 13%. She's 3 points behind. Are you ready? Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg is leading the Emerson poll with Gavin Newsom, the current governor of California, 1 point behind her. And guess who's bringing up the rear? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's who they believe are the Democratic stars going forward. And you're like, okay, if that's what you think. But in California, people are like, nope, no shot. In fact, you have candidates in California who 6 months ago said, if Kamala Harris runs for governor, I'm out. And then 2 months ago, they said, if Kamala Harris runs for governor, I'm definitely in. These are Democrats saying, I'm definitely in, because she doesn't stand a chance of winning. And they're right. Kamala Harris knew she didn't stand a chance. And so I think she might be kind of testing the waters for a 2028 run, but she's faded. She's done. And I think we've seen the last of Kamala.
And I think that any politician who had aspirations for running the state would have shown up during the riots, would have shown up during the fires. And she's done nothing.
No.
And the thing is, if you do want to run the state and you think you could stay home, then you know what a terrible governor she would be.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing is you have...
So who's left? Rick Caruso?
Rick Caruso is thinking really more about being the mayor of Los Angeles than he is the governor of California.
Against Bass again?
Yeah. I mean, I think... And listen, Bass, her numbers are horrific. So I think Rick Caruso, people are like, listen, he's running as a Democrat. He's really a Republican, but he has to run as a Democrat in California because nobody elects Republicans in that state anymore. I mean, at least they didn't, so that's kind of his thinking. But Karen Bass is no longer effective, and people realize she's no longer effective, and that's what's really, that's what's generating Rick Caruso. And quite frankly, in a lot of instances, you have this scenario where Caruso becomes the mayor of Los Angeles and wields a great deal of power over the state of California because it's a big position. It's kind of the same as New York. You got a lot of focus on the mayor of New York City. You don't have a lot of focus on the governor. The governor's up in the wilderness, right? Up in Albany, up in the wilderness, and you have the mayor who's in the heat of things.
Yeah.
Kind of the same in California.
All right, cool. Trace Gallagher, who are we going to see on your show?
Boy, that's a lot of hours away, Ron.
No, I'm talking about with John Roberts. Aren't you filling in for John Roberts?
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk a lot about this Kamala Harris, Joe Biden stuff. We're going to talk a lot about the dossier and why it was the Russia hoax. We've got a lot of this stuff going on. So
and great guests. That's all you.
And
need.
we got great guests. And we got Sandra Smith's going to be there, and it's going to be good.
1 to 3.
1 to 3.
And Fox News at night, whenever Gutfeld's done. I say 11 o'clock. Thanks, Trace.